You know that Keeley Companies is all about fostering the world-class culture through their incredible cultural pillars. Well, it was time to add a seventh cultural pillar, Keeley Green. Guided by the mission to raise the sustainability standards by which they design, build, operate, and live, Keeley Green is dedicated to using a holistic approach to leave a positive impact on our environment, create a future that is sustainable for generations to come. In the words of Rusty Keeley, we are just getting started. You can learn more about that just getting started mentality and all the work they do by visiting my friends at Keeley Companies online at KeeleyCompanies.com.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the #1 national best-selling author of the book On Fire. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, and he's the host of the Live Inspired podcast. John interviews extraordinary individuals on their life story so that you can wake up from accidental living and more fully live your life story. Here's your host, John O'Leary.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. We're bringing to you today a relatively heavy topic, but I think it is an incredibly important one. By the end of it, you're going to be inspired not only by our guest story, but by the limitless potential within yours. So here we go. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar criminal industry that denies freedom to more than 25 million individuals around the world. And then there is Gina Jernukian. She is stepping forward as the founder of Soul Survivor, Inc., a not-for-profit dedicated to helping survivors of human trafficking and former gang affiliation heal from the pain of their past by assisting them in removing the branding tattoos and the scars from their past. Through this work, she helps survivors reclaim their identities, their dignity, their freedom, their potential for tomorrow to be better than yesterday. Today, my friends, Gina shares the moment that shifted her purpose forever, the incredible journey of launching Soul Survivor, Inc., and the profound impact of helping survivors erase the painful reminders of their past. She reminds us that while our past may shape us, yes, it does not have to define us, and that healing and hope and new beginnings are always within reach. If you need a reminder that one person can indeed make an extraordinary difference in this world, today's conversation is for you. You will leave this episode with a deeper understanding of the hidden crisis of human trafficking, the power of small acts of kindness, and the unwavering truth that no matter where you've been, freedom and healing are always within reach. So family, brothers and sisters, leaders and servants, get ready to roll with my friend and not yours. Her name is Gina Jernukian. Gina, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you for having me.
I feel, as I so often do on these podcasts, like I'm already on with a friend and a kindred spirit. For those who somehow missed my long introduction, this rambling remark about your incredible life and work, if you had to introduce yourself and they said, Gina, what do you do? How do you respond to that today?
How I respond today is I advocate for victims and survivors of sex trafficking.
And when you say that, how many people step closer and say, tell me more? And how many people step away and reach for the bread and push their cart farther down the aisle?
Many people want to know about it, but once you start getting deep into it, they don't want to hear about it anymore. It's heavy and it's deep.
If it was one, it would be heavy and deep and agonizing to talk about through the work that you do, that it's not just one or two or dozens. It's everywhere. It's right in front of you, and somehow we're missing it.
Oh, it is. It's in every neighborhood, every demographic, geographically everywhere. No one's exempt from it. People don't realize that literally down their own block, there's probably human trafficking going on in one of the homes, and they just don't recognize it.
So later on in our conversation, I want to talk more about that and
Sure.
how do we recognize it and how do we strive to collectively redeem it. But I also want to hear about what brought you into it, because I think your origin story is remarkable insofar as it doesn't seem like these dots would lead to you and I having a conversation today. And yet here we are partying together and talking about this mission work that you do. So I'm going to back up a little bit in time away from your four daughters and all those grandbabies and all the work that you're doing today. Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Detroit, Michigan.
How long were you a Michiganer?
Michigan, 31 years, and then we
Okay.
moved to Arizona.
And for you, what was life like for you as a little one growing up in Detroit?
I had a really good upbringing, both parents in the home. My dad owned fish restaurants and stores. And so start working at a really early age, around the age of 13. I have four sisters, so I'm the middle. There's five of us girls. Having four daughters was no sweat for me growing up in a family of five girls. But did the baseball and had a pretty good childhood.
So I'm a middle one. That makes
You
me,
are.
I'm one of six and I'm the fourth. So I'm
Wow.
always striving to keep the peace, to add a little bit of
Yes.
humor, to tap the brakes a little bit. What was your role as the third of five?
It seems that way. It seems like the peacekeeper, the one that everyone goes to, sometimes the oldest one in the family. I felt like I was the oldest one in the family. And still to this day, even though we're all adults, I'm that middle ground, that middle person.
When you were a little one growing up, outside of wanting to become a Detroit Tiger or a Lion or whatever else you were dreaming of athletically, what was your vision for your life? What were you imagining it might look like as you grew up?
I thought that I always either wanted to be a nurse or a stewardess. And I
Okay.
actually did work at a hospital for 6 years going to nursing school. So I did start off that path, but I just never finished.
Why not?
Babies. I had lots of babies and I just didn't want to finish the school. I think I lost interest, especially after working at the hospital for so many years. I got a taste of it and I wasn't too sure that's really what I wanted to do anymore.
So you're raising a girl and then a army full of little girls. And you're also trying to bring in some income on the side. I understand that you worked for a while with Mary Kay.
I did. After I resigned from everything, I joined Mary Kay just to get the products. Long story short, within 18 months, I had my first free car and was a sales director. So I excelled very quickly in the company, loved it. I was able to put God first, family second, career third, always was the room mom, never missed a beat with my kids, and was able to build a huge business. I was in the top 2% of the company.
Oh my gosh. So there are a few in our audience who may not know what Mary Kay does. What is Mary Kay?
It is a cosmetic company. It's a multi-level. You own your own business, but Mary Kay, she's a legend. I totally recommend reading her book. She was an amazing Christian woman that started this when women really weren't in the workforce the way they are right now. And it really grew me. It really molded me into be able to speak and to be independent. And so by being in Mary Kay, which I thought I'd be in for life, really put me where I'm at today and to be able to do what I do today.
And we're not going to spend the entire time talking about Mary Kay or the
Yeah.
brand or the work y'all did, but I'm curious. What did you think you were really giving those that you were selling into? So when you're in front of someone else, outside of just the thing they were buying, what was deeper than that? What did you feel like you were really giving them?
Oh, you know what kept me in the company is because number one, I found Christ. I became a Christian through Mary Kay. Is I would look at the stage at these seminars, and these women, they were so inspirational and they really breathed life into other women that you can be more and you can do more and you can do it type attitude. And I wanted to be that inspiration. It was really never about the money and the free cars for me. I wanted to be an inspiration and train other women to come out of their shell and be something that they didn't think they could be.
Did you have a pink car?
I did.
You're
I
one of
did. I
them,
had
dude.
a
What
pink
kind of car were you
Cadillac.
driving around?
Oh, it was a pink Cadillac.
You were driving a pink
I
Cadillac.
was driving a pink Cadillac. My husband's in the car industry, so they give you an option. They'll pay you, it's either 5 or 750 a month for the car. So I only had the pink Cadillac maybe 2 years, and then I took the money because my husband's in the car business, so I could get a really nice car for 750 a month.
So you mentioned before we started talking about Cadillacs and stages and empowering women that you thought you'd do it for the rest of your life, but you didn't. So
No,
what changed?
in Mary Kay back in the day, we would always meet as a group, have unit meetings and encourage women. And I met with this other director who was an esthetician. And she said, Gina, become an esthetician. I work at a salon in Scottsdale. We'll do that together, Mary Kay together. And I said, okay. And then when I looked, it was like 40 grand. I was not that interested in becoming an esthetician, but I did have my eyeliners lip done years prior to that. And I needed to get them redone. So I thought maybe I'll learn permanent makeup, lower the price so more women can have it done and do it that way. So that's what I did. So I got trained and I got certified in permanent makeup. That excelled into paramedical tattooing. So I was still working my Mary Kay business. and they were working themselves together. Paramedico is like women that have had mastectomies, people that have bad scarring, and so you learn how to minimize that or camouflage it. That's paramedical tattooing. And so the salon owner one day came up to me and said, Gina, there's this new form of tattoo removal. I think you'd be great at it. It's with all the equipment that you already have. So I had some free time. I went with her to get this appointment done, and I watched it and thought, I can do that. So I flew off to Vegas, still not ever thinking of what I'm doing right now, thinking another stream of income, something else to offer. I've got a lot of energy, so I can do a lot of things at the same time. Got certified, came back, advertised. Does anyone have tattoo regret? Come to me, I'll remove it. And it's a needling process with serum. And so that started to build up. And then I start seeing very odd tattoos, like tattoos that didn't make sense, or the same type of tattoo, like a crown, then a different crown, then a different crown. It was just very strange, something that didn't make sense. And that's raised an eyebrow, like, what is this? I really had no idea. And then a gentleman, with this, now I wouldn't call him a gentleman, I would call him a monster now in hindsight, brought in this female to get her eyebrows done. He was so incredibly abusive and mean to me and mean to the 2-year-old. It came to a point where, and then there was also a tattoo he wanted me to put on her, which I didn't do tattoos, not artistic tattoos.
Right.
It got to the point where I told him I couldn't do the service. And so, anyways, I brought some of these pictures to some friends of mine and I said, what is this? And someone had said, oh, that's a branding, just like that. And I said, a what? They said, a branding. And I start researching it, looking into it, and thought I was just convicted. Honestly, it was like I needed to do this. So I start calling local organizations here in Phoenix and said, if you have anyone, bring them and I'll do it for free. So I carried on with my Mary Kay and all that. And it was a matter of maybe 3 or 4 months. I was overwhelmed with survivors, like overwhelmed. I start recruiting estheticians, anyone I could think of, tattoo artists, someone to help me get some of these brandings either removed or covered up. So that's actually where it all started.
My gosh, you sprinted us through a life stories. We're going to slow walk through part of that journey again because
Yeah.
I want to make sure our audience understands what that monster brought to you, what you missed, but then what you woke up to and what you're doing about it now. Because I
Yes.
think all of us have seen whispers of this type of stuff in one way or another in our lives, and it's so surprising we ignore it. And you see this guy in your salon not physically abusing this woman, but clearly emotionally abusive to the child and rude to you and condescending,
Right.
demanding a tattoo. And finally, you're like, I'm done. This is not what we do here. And you learn
Yes.
that what they were looking for is branding. Most of our audience, they're attached in one way or another to business. And so we know branding to be the way we're recognized in the community. With human branding, it's radically different. When you say it was branding, what do you mean by that?
So brandings, they are a form of control, manipulation, and ownership. And they come in a form of tattoos is what we mostly see. And so it's a trafficker or a pimp. They will brand their victims. So if they have 3 or 4, they call them wifeys, but if they have 3 or 4 gals that they house and pimp out, they will brand them the same thing. It'll be their name, or it'll have a crown, or a logo, or a symbol, or something that signifies his ownership. And we see a lot of tattoos. We also see carvings in the skin from knives and burns. So those are the 3 most that we see. But the biggest one is tattoos. We see that all the time. And that is an American thing, by the way.
Gina, what leads these girls into your salon? That girl that you remember seeing and her 2-year-old son that you remember seeing.
Mhm.
Ultimately, what was it that took her away from wherever she was to end up in this position in life?
There's a few different ways it happens. Familial, which is family, and I've seen most of it is that is the most common form of human trafficking is from the family. And so that's the dad, the mom, the uncle, the aunt. They'll traffic their children. They'll go to school during the day and they're trafficked at night. It's so disgusting, and most people don't really understand it. And it's probably in their schools. I would say 99.9% it's in their schools, and they just don't see it or recognize it. And then you have the Romeo, someone that hangs out at the malls or online and befriends someone. It's usually a cute young dude, maybe 18 to 20 something, and befriends someone. They become boyfriend, girlfriend. It doesn't matter how old the girl is and how young the girl is, how old the guy is. He captures her and she tells all. So he knows everything about her. And then eventually he turns and uses that against her, and then she's trapped. But she falls in love, basically. She falls in love with what she thinks is love.
And you said, John, these guys have four, five, six
Mhm.
wifeys. I can understand falling in love with a bad guy. I don't understand how someone falls in love and stays in love and stays in that position with a lousy guy who also has three or four or five other
Yeah.
wifeys. Just, and I recognize, John, that it's a broken world we live in, man. Welcome to it. But help me and our audience understand what's going on right here.
It's such a manipulation. You could ask the same question as why does someone stay in a domestic violence situation? We look at that with a normal thinking brain that's not abused and say, why would you stay? There's so many excuses why they say, and I believe it's 9 times they have to leave to actually finally leave. It's the same thing for these girls. If it's a business that, let's say there's four of them in a household, they have one girl that runs everything. She's called the bottom girl. So she makes the airline ticket, she books the hotel. It's literally a business. And these girls fight for that spot, believe it or not. It's so hard for us to conceive that why would you fight for more time with this guy that abuses you and sells you and beats you? But that's what happens. That's how it is in this household.
You mentioned that whether it's a Romeo, some boyfriend, or a parent, that oftentimes these girls are young, oftentimes they're in schools. And you mentioned, John, it's probably your school. It's probably every single school. What is it that is taking place that we as teachers or parents or just ambassadors who care about something greater than our own interest at the end of the day, that we might pay closer attention to recognize this and raise a red flag when it needs to be raised?
I'll tell you, fortunately, a lot has been done in the last decade, and especially Arizona. We have a lot of vice squads and meetings with teachers and police and stuff like that. But I think where they're missing it is the classrooms are big. They're 25, 30 kids, and they're just missing it. Maybe they think that this person is just shy. Or a lot of times when these young victims go to school, this is the only place they can thrive and be normal. So they're good students, they're A students, they love doing things, but they're not involved in any extracurricular activities. They don't go to overnights. So it's things like that we have to look at. And another key thing is, and this is really hard because if the parents are involved, can't call the parent, and that happens. They'll call the parent and say, this is what they're looking like, or this is what they're saying. And then the parent will come back and say, oh, she has bipolar, or she has, and it's the parent that's trafficking them. And it just seems so far-fetched, but it is so true. And that's what happens.
How common is it, Gina?
It's very common. US, I believe we're number one in trafficking.
Yeah, my wife came home. She's an occupational therapist who works with kids with special needs in St. Louis as an OT, but she went to a continued ed program. And I think St. Louis is the fourth most human trafficked city in the country. And here we just go about grocery shopping and taking the kids out
We
and
do.
baseball games on Saturdays, having no idea that this is everywhere around us.
You bring up a good point because when people think of human trafficking or sex trafficking, they think of a drug addict on a corner, or their mind is something completely different. And this is the truth of it. When you're sitting at your child's dance recital, you might be sitting next to a victim that's watching her child in a dance recital. When we're grocery shopping, there might be the lady next in line. They blend right in. If you don't know what to look for, they literally blend right in. And sometimes you won't know, but
So
they're literally everywhere.
going back to a story you shared a moment ago about the
Mhm.
monster who came in and clearly was abusive to his girl. Share with me the first time not only you saw the branding in front of you, but you realized, man, I can do something. I can remove this. What was that process like for you?
I was excited because I'd been doing other removals along the way. And when I knew that I could just have them come in, and again, it wasn't ever about the money, have them come in for free, it was really exciting. And the look on their faces and just they could breathe without having to see this. Now it's multiple sessions, so it doesn't happen in one session. But even just going through the process, you could see that they could breathe. And for these survivors, it is a process for them. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to get this remover covered up because they're still tied some way. They feel like it's a betrayal, or they feel like they can't let go yet. It's just sometimes it's a really big process for them to even get it covered or removed.
Tell me how the brand keeps them tied, tethered, and chained to that abuse. And then tell me, secondarily, how does removing that liberate them to take back their lives and live differently going forward. First, when you are branded by some guy
Mhm.
as theirs, how does that affect them emotionally and mentally in every aspect of life? And then, secondly, after going through your process and being cleansed, being made fully clean again, I mean, it's so like spiritual and faithful and
Mhm.
redemptive. How are they better because of it?
So the branding process is also multifaceted. It's not as though they put someone on a tattoo chair and pin them down and do this. It's almost a reward for a lot of these girls. It's like they want to get it at the time. It's their reward. They did this and this to be able to get this and be a part of this. They're so incredibly brainwashed and manipulated. So at the time, typically it's not forced on them. And we do have, and we actually had one just come through the other day, her entire face is tattooed. She was one that it was forced upon. They put her on drugs and just lit her up with tattoos. It's so disgusting. Then you wake up and you've got his name here and stuff come down your eyes and then something across her chin. And so we're just starting the process of covering, removing that. But for the most part, it's not forced on them. It's a trophy almost. You know what I'm saying? It's like they want to get it.
They
They're
get to
making
a
it
point
happy.
at some point along the journey where the trophy they thought they once wanted, they want removed. They want it
Yes.
liberated. What's that like for them as they come to that point? They look you in the eyes and they say, you see this? I want that name gone. I want that
Mhm.
barcode off me.
That is also it's not a trick question, but there's so many different emotions. Sometimes they come in and they're nervous and they're jittery, and then sometimes they come in and they're so excited and can't wait to get this done. It depends on where they're at in their journey. But at the end of the day, the result is the same. Whether they came in nervous and emotional or angry or excited, the end result is the same. They're very excited. They're thrilled. If you looked at my website, and we have some photos, I have a freedom wall and it's a tree and their handprints are on. And that's just Arizona. There's hundreds and hundreds on that tree, and that's just Arizona. Those are the ones that I've done. And when they put their handprints on that wall, they allow me to take a picture. I'm telling you, it's like life. Like this is part of their healing, because
Yes.
every time they look at that, it brings them back to when they got it. Triggers them to everything else about that part of their past, and it's extremely painful. They don't have to look at it anymore.
So I'm glad you brought the Freedom Wall. I've been all over your website and
Oh,
followed your work, and I love that artwork. I love those hands, man.
it's so cool.
The vibrancy of it is so life-giving. And you see a picture of a beautiful girl from the back,
Mhm.
her hand up there, and you can't see her face, but you can see the joy.
Yeah,
You can sense the joy. And then you look around that tree, and there's, as you mentioned, hundreds of little hands representing
yeah.
leaves and lives that are beginning to be redeemed.
Some of those, and I can't keep track of all of them, but I can point to them and I can tell you who they are. And if you look close enough, there are some tiny hands on that wall too. And it's just an emotional thing. It's just so emotional across the board, up and down with that. But really is beautiful. And if they got it covered, then they choose what they want to cover it with, something that's meaningful to them.
Share with me a story or two about an individual. And I know you're not going to use names or specific locations, but sometimes when you talk in broad glances, we miss the real sacred of what's taken place. To the degree you can, share one example of a woman who approached you and walk us through that relationship.
I've got a million stories, but this lady was a little bit older, so she was actually in a cult. There's a lot of satanic ritual, there's a lot of rings, like sex trafficking rings, those are real too. She was in one of those, so basically she was born into it. And her uncle actually tattooed everyone that he was selling and trafficking, and it was just a small blue dot over their hearts. And so she had it covered unprofessionally somewhere down the line in her life, and she came to me to get it removed. And just as I numbed her up and she was telling me the story of, sometimes they tell all, and it's something that when it comes firsthand, it's so shocking. It's just so unbelievably shocking. But as we were getting ready to go and I was starting to do it, she told me to stop. And I said, why? And she says, once you remove the first one, can I see the second one for one last time? So I thought that was odd, but she wanted to see that blue dot one more time before I completely removed it. I asked her why, and she said, because it'll be part of my healing, because for so long she just covered the blue dot. Now she's completely removing it.
Mm.
So that was interesting.
You work with all these ladies and you have the proof of it on the Freedom Wall
Yeah.
to work with guys. And I'm not going to have you go through all these stories, but I do want to hear two of them. I know you worked early in your career with a guy named Phil, a Navy SEAL.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. That was so long ago. How did you even know about him?
A gentleman never gives away his sources, so I will not tell you how
Okay.
I know these things, but I do know that you worked with this guy
I
who came in
did.
identified by a marking, and he'd always assumed that's just who he is, and you were able to liberate him and remind him who he
Yes.
is.
He was incredible. Oh, the stories he told. But yes, even men, we do have men survivors and boy survivors too, just the majority are female. But we also do work with ex-gang, ex-prison. So that's where Phil fell in with he had it on his fingers. And people grow up and they change. And to be identified as something or somebody that was your past is very hurtful. And so, yeah, that was really cool. He was literally, I think, probably one of my first
I think he
removal.
was.
Yeah,
My understanding is he had 666
he
across
did.
to show the world whose he was.
Yes.
And then he realized after living like that for a while, that is not at all whose he was. And you were able to wash him clean. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful work that you do. You did that in a studio. The lady
Mhm.
whose blue dot you removed, you did that in your studio. Where does this work generally take place?
It's all in my studio. Every now and then, there's a one of the centers here that we'll go to, and so if they have 4 or 5 survivors at the same time, we'll just go there. And so we'll go and, like, on site and do that, and we'll do that sometimes. We've done it in Texas, we've done it in Utah. So if there's multiple, we'll go to them, but it's always done in the studio. We have probably 8, at least 8 in the Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona area.
When
It's
when
just
I first heard about you, I thought you were a Scottsdale, Phoenix, Arizona type girl. And then I followed you a little bit more closely. And this is a national movement now.
It is. It started off here in Phoenix, and what had happened is advocates were calling. They heard about us. We weren't even a nonprofit then. They heard about me and said, "Can I come?" I'm like, "Of course." And they were driving 4 or 5 hours. Like there was no one. And so it just kept growing and growing. And I was like, oh my gosh, people are flying in and driving in. And so just really prayed about it and thought, I need to make a decision. That's actually when I quit Mary Kay. It was like one or the other. One's money and not all the money, but it was just different. I wore really nice suits and flew everywhere and trained hundreds of people, and it was really a cool job and got to inspire women. And the other one, I wasn't getting paid. It was extremely emotional, and I wasn't sure where it was going, but I knew it was growing, and I just felt God saying, "You're going that way. I put you here for 20 some years to mold you to do this." And so I did. I called the company and I resigned, gave back the car, gave up my customers, and that's what I do full time is sole survivor.
Before I even go into the mission work anymore, I got to spend a minute talking about that because when you are climbing the ladder and the
Mhm.
ring is always one notch farther up, like the ring you think you want, it's just barely out of reach. But if you take this one and that, if you keep moving upward, eventually you get the brass ring. You were on that ladder for a while, and that doesn't make it a bad ladder. It doesn't mean
Right.
it's the wrong wall or on the wrong foundation, but you're climbing up that ladder of success. And then you look outward, and there is a completely different ladder, not affecting tens of thousands of women, but one. And then if you do that right, maybe one more. And then if you do that right, maybe one more. So what gave you the strength and the wherewithal to leap from a ladder you knew and the world knew? I'm telling you, dude, when you pull up in a pink car and it's a Cadillac and you look good and you get off the plane, and it makes you feel good and it makes those around you look up to you.
Yeah.
You're leaving that for a completely different pursuit. That's bold. So talk about what allowed you to leap from one ladder onto this mission.
Honestly, it was just trusting God's direction. That was it. I blindly just knew that I knew. As a matter of fact, I was at a seminar. So Mary Kay has big seminars. I don't know when it was, how many years ago, but I was flying home and I'm a journal. So I like to journal a lot. And I remember coming home, and this is Soul Survivor wasn't birthed yet, but I was doing the removals and it was growing at this time. I was flying home and I'm writing down all my notes. I'm so excited about this seminar. And something was overwhelming, just literally took over me. And I start not bawling, but just start crying. And I'm like, this is it. This is the year. I'm going to be national because national is the top of the top in Mary Kay. This is it. This is like the sign. I knew it. And even in my journal, I wrote this, and I wrote a few other things that actually came true. Something about Sydney. What is that opera house in Sydney? I was under a white tent. I was witnessing or doing something. I have this all written down, and I get home to bazillion messages and emails, and I was like, it wasn't national sales director. It was just what was convicting me. This is what was overwhelming on the plane home. It was never about Mary Kay. And I'll tell you real briefly, a few years later, which was just a few years ago, I ended up, I don't know if you ever heard of Global Vision Bible Church with Pastor Greg Locke. We end up connecting. He had us, me, and some survivors go there, and he had me speak. This was a few years back. And when I was under that tent, I realized I'm under this white tent, which looks like a cathedral. I'm witnessing and talking and inspired. That's what it was. It was never Sydney. It was that, but that's why what I envisioned. It was just a 360. It was just crazy. So it's just trusting.
And as beautiful as the Sydney Opera House is, the idea of being under a white tarp with survivors, sharing
Yes.
stories, sharing their hearts with people, all of us broken, reminding us that that past doesn't have to negatively define you. Like that, to me, that is such worthy mission work. The organization is called soulsurvivor.inc.
Mhm.
So you've been speaking a little bit about your individual work and individual folks that you served. Talk more broadly now about where are you located geographically? How many folks did you serve last year?
The headquarters is basically in Phoenix, Arizona, but we are in, I believe, 66 cities now. And so we have tattoo artists, permanent makeup artists, tattoo removal specialists, and estheticians. So that's who we are always looking for in every city and every state, so we can get them on board with us. So when an advocate or survivor reaches out, we can say, we have someone in your city you can go see. And then Soul Survivor pays for that procedure. So there's never any cost to the survivor. Every year is different. Some years it's 500, some year it's 1,500. So we average 750 to 1,000 procedures a year and climbing. It grows as we grow more affiliates.
Around here, our organization is called Live Inspired, and we track top line revenue and speeches booked and podcast numbers. But the numbers we care far more about are like the one and the one. And when we get one letter, that's why we do the work. And when we get one hug in the back of the room, that's why we did that speech. And so I get tracking 500, 750,000, 1,500, the big, beautiful numbers, 66 markets. That's awesome. But if you keep one lady alive because she's able to look in the mirror and feel respect for herself again, all this effort over all these years and all the things you do to keep it going, it was all worthwhile.
Yeah, and being the person that does a lot of the removals here in Phoenix, you get to know the girls, and they most of them don't have moms, or they have very dysfunctional, toxic parents. And so I become mama, So over the last, I would say 6 or 7 years, I've become mama to a lot of these girls. I mean, they text and call me all the time. I pick them up and take them out and help them out, help them get help in apartments and clothes and food. And we do all those kind of things. And like you said, it's like you save one life, it's worth it. Nothing else matters. Is saving the life, or this person can sleep again or look in the mirror again and not ever have to think about that, at least that portion of it. I've come so close with some of the girls where they over time would call me 7 or 8 at night and say, hey Gina, so and just ran. Like, most survivors are still in contact with victims, so they always are in contact with people that are still in the life. And I would get so many phone calls saying, where should she go or what should she do? And I'm like, I don't know. So I would Google, I don't know. And it happens so often where we actually created an app. It's called STEP. It's Survivors Together Elevating People. It's not quite live yet. It's live, but it's not launched. And this is going to really help people in a moment's notice. They can go to step.live and geographically put in where they're at, what they need. Is it a lawyer? Is it transportation? Is it pregnancy? Is it shelter? Is it food? And they can click on it and they will find locations, the hours they're open right in their area. Because people, a lot of times when they leave, and this is the example. So the one girl calls, some girl had run from Seattle. And she said, Gina, what does she do? I'm like, I don't know. So I called my contacts in Seattle. They therefore reached out to safe homes and groups and shelters. And by the time I got back from those people to my contacts, to me, to this girl, to then the victim, she was gone. And this was almost 4 years ago. So it took so much time for this girl running, literally running, to find her somewhere to go. And that's where it was like, okay, we need to do something. So together with survivors, we created this app, and we think it's going to be a game changer in not just victims. It could be homeless, domestic violence, anyone looking for help, get help right away.
So it's impossible not to feel your energy and passion for the work you do, just hearing your voice and seeing your face. And doing a little bit of mission work around here, I also recognize that it is exhausting. Yes, it's important, and yes, it's what keeps you going, but it's also the thing that sometimes drains you. So when you think about your own batteries, what recharges you?
That is such a question that people ask often, and up north in Arizona, and that's like my little sanctuary. So a lot of times I'll go up there and then just be alone. Pray. I pray all the time. I journal a lot. My husband is an awesome supporter. And I think because I've been doing it for so long, I don't want to say my heart's hardened, because it hasn't, but it's not a shock to me anymore what I see and what I hear. Every now and then it still is, but I'm not like in shock all the time like I used to be. But it does hurt your heart for sure. It's just some days really get to you where you don't sleep and you just pray, because they're monsters. These people are monsters, and this really is an evil world that we live in. There's a lot of good, but there's a lot of evil people that hurt children and hurt people.
I believe evil is real, and I don't think it's just a cute little textbook or fairy tale. Or I think the Bible that my dad once read said it. Evil is real, and
Mhm.
there's evidence of it all around us. And if we look closely enough, sometimes even within us. And so you've been on the front line seeing evil, but also fighting to wash it away, which is so awesome. I as a speaker and doing the work we do in the community, frequently will have people come up and share things that I don't feel like I deserve hearing, like just about their life and their struggle and what they're currently going through. And it's sacred conversations. Um, but it always reminds me how blessed I am to somehow be invited into that sacred chamber. Are you amazed that these folks will come to you, get physically close to you, and let you do this work over them? And then while you're doing it, share a little bit of their heart with you?
It is like what you said. I'm honored to be on your podcast. It was crazy when I got the email. And so I think that goes along with just being someone that's humble and doesn't look, we're not looking for outward rewards or praises. And that's not why we do what we do. And so when we're honored with something or blessed with something, or someone actually trusts you, it feels so good. You trust me. I hope that you would, and it feels really good that they know they can count on me at any time, even though sometimes they can be really difficult. They can be really difficult. I'm always there for them in one capacity or another.
I've heard you say on several different interviews that you strive to choose faith over fear.
Hmm.
I think that's where I want to leave it before we step into the Live Inspired 7. For those of us listening to our conversation right now who are living in fear, and if they don't know they are, if they watch the headlines, if they look at the evening news, if they look too much at their neighbor's house or someone else's job, employment, whatever it is, like they are living in fear.
Hmm.
What's your encouragement for us living in fear to choose faith instead?
And like you said, all you got to do is hop on Facebook or social media, and you're immediately in fear, whether it's a disease or aliens or war or whatever it's going to be. And at the end of the day, if Jesus, what the plan is, because it's already written. So we already know what's going to happen. So there's no shock. And I trust God. I trust him that much. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world around me. Even I get creepers and stalkers and people that follow me and weird stuff. We have surveillance all over our houses, but I'm still not afraid. There's not like 1 ounce of me that's afraid of anything. I live in peace because I know Jesus. That's the truth.
Gina, I'm so grateful you're sharing that piece and that you are sharing part of your story and part of your work. Where can people learn more about the work you're doing?
They can go to our website, which is soul, survivor.ink. And there's links there. They can email us if they want to get involved, or if they're an artist or want to be an affiliate, or they need our services. We can help them.
That was one of my questions. When you're marketing in finger quotes, are you marketing for those who have been branded? Are you marketing to attract in new clinicians to help you remove these? Or are you marketing to get new dollars to help support this effort to make a greater impact in the community?
All of the above. I mean, that's how we function. We have to have affiliates. Organizations need to know about us, so they can send their survivors to us. And obviously, we need funding because if we don't have funding, then we can't carry on. Because we do pay the artists, we do pay the affiliates, and like as it costs to run a business, whether it's a website or whatever it costs.
Or since you use the expression carry on, I think about someone who's been branded and how some days they probably find themselves almost unable to carry on. For those who are feeling that way right now, listening to our conversation, what encouragement would you offer to them as we wrap up?
You're not alone, and there's hope. That's literally it. You are not alone, and there's hope, and it's not your fault.
Gina, we guide all of our mission centered, beautiful survivors through 7 questions. They're called the Live Inspired Seven. So buckle up, get ready for them. The very first question is, what's been the most impactful book you've ever read?
My answer is going to be the Bible.
So I read it last year, first time to actually go all the way through it in a year. And
Yeah,
it
that's
was awesome.
tough.
But dude, it was long. And sometimes I would forget what I read the day before, the week before, the month before. So if someone hears you say the Bible and they're like, dude, that's a big book,
It
is there a
is.
specific book within the Bible that you would encourage them to go to first?
John. I think go to John first.
It's a good place to start.
Yep.
In the beginning. That's his first words out of the gate. In the beginning. What
Yes. I just think it's the easiest book to start with.
what's one positive characteristic or one positive trait that you possessed as a little girl growing up outside of Detroit that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today?
I don't know how to answer that. I'm trying to think of it. I think I've become better since I've grown, since I've grown up, I think I've become better.
It's a good
I'm so
answer.
sorry. I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, the good news is this is not multiple choice and there are no wrong
Okay.
answers. So you got it right. And I think you're the first person to say what I would say to that little girl is I'm getting better. And that's a pretty cool thing to be able to say to her. So congratulations. If your home caught fire and your babies and grandbabies and animals and spouse are all out of the house safely and you have an opportunity of running in and grabbing one item, what's that one thing you would grab?
My pictures and CDs.
If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a long conversation with anyone, living or deceased, who would you like to have next to you?
My mom.
What's the best advice mom or anyone else ever gave you?
The best advice, probably work hard, stay positive.
Is that for mom or just others?
That was from my dad. My dad, we start working at a young age, but integrity, always have integrity.
What would you tell yourself at age 20?
Grow up. Like, girl, stop doing that. No, at age 20, oh, listen to someone that is older and mature. Listen to someone where you want to be one day, someone who you want to be like or inspired to be.
Gina Jernukian, it has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How would you like yours to read?
The most important thing to me is God and family. They come first. I love my grandbabies and my kids, and I can't get enough of them. So I would hope that they would say, loved her family to the fullest and believed in them.
Gina, you loved your family well. You certainly love your God well, and you did so enough to jump off of one ladder and start building the foundation firm below other people's ladders. Gave them back a sense of self, a sense of beauty, a sense of autonomy, and a sense of agency. That is such mission work, and I feel honored to have had you on our Live Inspired podcast.
Thank you so much. You're an inspiration as well. I was telling my husband about your story. He remembered it actually. So it's amazing what you do because you're able to bring light to so many different topics. So I think that's amazing. So thank you for what you do.
My friends, you are listening to the voice, the heart, and the inspiration of our friend Gina Jernukian. My name is John O'Leary, and today is our day. What a gift it is. Live inspired. Well, my friends, with affiliates in more than 60 cities across the United States, Soul Survivor Inc. averages almost 1,000 procedures every year, and each of those procedures is free of cost to the survivors. It's a remarkable mission that is changing the world one life at a time. If you are a tattoo artist, permanent makeup artist, tattoo removal specialist, or esthetician and are interested in helping survivors of human trafficking and former gang affiliation heal from the pain of their past by assisting them in the removal of their branding tattoos and scars. Consider becoming an affiliate with Soul Survivor Inc. You can learn more about that mighty work at soulsurvivor.inc or visit this episode's show notes and we'll have a link right there for you. If today's conversation with Gina resonated with you, and how could it not, you won't want to miss my episode with one of my heroes. Her name is Rebecca Bender. Rebecca is a survivor. She's an advocate. She's a leader in the fight against human trafficking. After enduring, in her own journey, nearly 6 years of being trafficked, she escaped, and she has since dedicated her life to helping others do the exact same. In our conversation, Rebecca opens up about her harrowing journey, the lessons she learned, and the strength it takes to rebuild a life. Most importantly, she reminds us all that we are not defined by what we've been through, but by what we choose to do next in our lives. It is an incredible episode. Check it out at episode 222, or you can just roll over with me right now to johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. We will have there a link directly to the Rebecca Bender episode. Well, family, friends, servants, leaders, brothers, and sisters, I want to thank you for tuning in this time and let you know I'm excited to see you next time. So for this time, and until then, my name is John O'Leary, and today is your day. What a gift. Live inspired. Well, my friends, with affiliates in more than 60 cities across the United States, Soul Survivor Inc. averages almost 1,000 procedures every year, and each of those procedures is free of cost to the survivors. It's a remarkable mission that is changing the world one life at a time. If today's conversation with Gina resonated with you, and how could it not, you won't want to miss my episode with one of my heroes. Her name is Rebecca Bender. Rebecca is a survivor. She's an advocate. She's a leader in the fight against human trafficking. After enduring, in her own journey, nearly 6 years of being trafficked, she escaped, and she has since dedicated her life to helping others do the exact same. In our conversation, Rebecca opens up about her harrowing journey, the lessons she learned, and the strength it takes to rebuild a life. Most importantly, she reminds us all that we are not defined by what we've been through, but by what we choose to do next in our lives. It is an incredible episode. Check it out at episode 222, or you can just roll over with me right now to johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. We will have there a link directly to the Rebecca Bender episode. Well, family, friends, servants, leaders, brothers, and sisters, I want to thank you for tuning in this time and let you know I'm excited to see you next time. So for this time, and until then, my name is John O'Leary, and today is your day. What a gift. Live inspired.
Keeley Companies was started almost 50 years ago by the one and only Larry Keeley. What started as a small family-owned paving company in St. Louis has grown to a nationally known full-service construction, development, and restoration partner. Larry the Legend, as he is affectionately known, has been a part of this growth every step of the way and continues to provide guidance as his son Rusty, my buddy, drives their vision and achieves results on purpose. His unwavering foundation of a family culture with a focus on people has gotten Keeley Companies to where they are today, and their journey is truly just beginning. To learn more about Larry the Legend and Keeley Companies, check them out at KeeleyCompanies.com.